Okay, so for the past half a year, we've been seeing reports like this saying that reduced capacity to the United States, or WestJet and Air Canada have reduced their flights to the US, or they've even canceled some flights. Or we've seen reports saying that 15 straight months in a row it's been down. But my question has always been, what areas are actually losing the money? Like when I used to go to Las Vegas, I know the hotels and all the events and restaurants, they're losing money. But what other areas are also losing money by me not going? So, to help me with these questions, I jumped on a call with Professor Wayne Smith from the Toronto Metropolitan University and one of our good friends of the channel, YULSpotter, who has been with my channel since the beginning, and he's also my aviation expert. And today we just had a casual chat among friends talking about this topic. So, I wanted to share their expertise with everybody, and at least it helped me to understand where our boycott, or at least where my boycott, who's not getting my money anymore. Before we start, a quick shout out again to everybody that's subscribing to my Substack. I'm still in shock, to be honest, because I'm not a writer at all. I mean, I write like incident reports, and I have too much sarcasm in my articles, I think, but seems like everybody enjoys it. So thanks again for everybody for subscribing, and a special thanks to those that are on the paid subscription. Oh, and since I have this clown on the screen right now, Pete Hoekstra, the petition to get him out, wow, it's up to 89,727 signatures at the time I'm editing this video. Yesterday, when I created my Hoekstra video, it was only at 55,000. So Canadians all across Canada are speaking up, and so are other social media creators and content creators as well. Someone sent me a message saying that I contributed like 20,000. No, that's not it. I don't even think I have 20,000 views on my video. So I'm not taking credit for this at all. What this is and what we're seeing right now is just Canadians. They're fed up, and everyone's starting to rally together. So let's see if we can get this thing to like 120,000. I'm pretty sure we can. I'll leave a link in the description below if you haven't signed it yet. And I can't forget those who have contributed to my Buy Me a Coffee page. I sincerely appreciate it. Now, just a heads up before we get into the chat with Wayne and YULSpotter, the co-host. I didn't realize how loud she was. I did the call with my headphones on, so I could kind of hear her, but I didn't realize the mic picked up that much of her. So, if you like the co-host, you're probably going to like the video. But if you don't like the cat, then maybe this video is not for you. And to those who actually don't like the cat, well, sorry, you're going to have to deal with her, because I syringe fed her when she was no bigger than my hand. So she's not going anywhere, and she's family. All right, let's jump into the conversation that I had with my friends. It's a bit of a longer video, so if you want to pause and get another coffee, now's the time to do it. So, after when we talked about this on the side, I wanted to thank both of you for coming on and using your expertise to help to explain to the community. So before we jump into it, if you're watching my video for the first time, I have YULSpotter, who is a very loyal community member and has been with me since the beginning. And he's also my aviation expert that I go to. So any questions that I have on the aviation industry, he's the first guy that I'm going to be messaging. And on the right, we have Wayne, Professor Wayne Smith from the Toronto Metropolitan University. And same thing as well, anything when it comes to tourism, these two guys are like my chat GPT. I just type a question and they help me answer it. So thank you again for coming on. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, you're welcome.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to have you guys on both at the same time. So yeah, I guess to kind of kick this off, I mean, when it comes to, what do you guys call it? Transborder travel. How are we looking right now? I mean, what's the current status? Post World Cup, times, I guess.
Well, I mean, some of the data that I was able to pull is for Q1 of this year. That some data has come out already. Sure. And I know you've often talked about aircraft reductions, and that's the data that's a little bit more difficult to get when they change aircrafts to a smaller version. So like from maybe a 737 MAX 8 to an A220. That's a lot of that has been done, but that's harder to get hard information on. Right. But what we can get is number of seats that we can see. So nice. That's some of the data that we can share. And I think Wayne is going to have the revenue parts.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And let me just fill in. I can fill in a couple things here based on border crossing. So, for example, in April 2026, and because we're talking about airlines, right? Air returns were down 7.1%. In May 2020,
last year, right?
No, 2020, April 2026, May 2026, air return was down 5.5% versus 2025.
Got it.
And then in June, even with that sort of the increases that you're seeing, air returns dropped 3.8%. So the air returns have it. Anytime you see there's more Canadians crossing the border, it's almost always been drive traffic as opposed to air traffic. So two very different types of markets.
Yeah. And I know you've explained in the past that air travelers going to the United States, they spend more, they stay longer, whereas Canadians going across the border by land, they might just be doing day trips or weekend trips and not as much. So I never really thought about that until you and I talked about it before. And, that's why I think that the focus really should be on the air traffic that is going down, and how many seats that we've actually, or the United States has actually lost.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Wayne.
So let me just give you Las Vegas as an example, because that's one we all know and we've all heard. Well, last year they lost approximately 350,000 arriving Canadian passengers at Harry Reid Airport. All right. So if you think about that, they have to come to the airport to arrive, and then they have to come to the airport to leave. So you're talking about 700,000 visitors, right? But what that means, they've lost money in terms of passenger facility charges. So just last year alone was about $1.6 million just in those fees. Right. Landing gate and apron usage losses. That was another almost $5 million they lost. Mm-hmm. International customs and FIS facility losses. So once again, this is another sort of federal inspection fees and all that sort of stuff. That was another $2.8 million loss. So had nothing, just pure airport stuff, right? Mm-hmm. They lost 9.3 million just in that alone. When you start adding in the airport fees and stuff like that, so the terminal dining and rental, that was a $10 million loss. Rental car concessions and guided transportation losses was another $10.5 million loss.
Wow.
So overall, you're looking at just Vegas alone losing in and around, and these are sort of estimates because they don't put out actual numbers, but about $30 million.
Wow. And that's just at the airport, right? And all
that's just the airport. Right. So that's the planes landing, people going through the airport, mm-hmm. Renting a car at the airport because they get a kickback on that. You get an Uber from the airport, they get a kickback on that. You buy something at the airport, all the fees they get for that. Mm-hmm. So you're basically the loss of the Canadian market was right around $30 million.
Wow.
That's not chump change.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, I have to wrap my mind around it. That's just the airport. That's not talking about the businesses or the hotels or events and attractions that are also losing further money as well.
Yeah. Well, you add in through the whole cycle. That's, but you'd be amazed at what 600,000 people spending is.
Yeah.
That's a lot of cash.
There's even there's even in like with Vegas, there's anybody who's been through the airport there's slot machines in the airport, so they're even losing revenue there.
Yeah, I've been a victim to those ones. Not lately, but in my earlier days. I mean, you're at the airport, you're waiting for your flight back to Vancouver, and you're like, hey, I still got some U.S. money, so why don't I just try to see if I can win?
That's what they're counting on. At last year to this year, just for Q.
Sorry, YULSpotter, your mic is a little bit choppy. Wayne, are you picking that too, or?
Yep.
Yeah, it's.
Okay. Is it better now?
Yeah, it seems to be a little bit better now. You're not sounding like a robot.
Okay. So. Okay. I don't know if it was bandwidth or maybe you've seen my dog. You have a cat that meows. I have a dog that wants attention. He's just not very vocal. In case you see him. So Las Vegas is the biggest loser in terms of number of seats when we compare 2025 to 2026. About 82,000 fewer seats from Canada in terms of scheduled flights from one year to the other. So they're number one in terms of seat loss for what we call Transborder, which is basically the US. And then number two is Orlando. So I think that's around it. Well, it could actually be because the estimates are between 79,000 and even 90,000. So if it's on the top end of 90,000, they're actually number one. And we all know what's in Orlando. It's like theme park capital of Florida.
Yep.
So that's in terms of seats. Those are the two biggest losers
Now,
for Canadian.
and when you say seats, is that with WestJet, Air Canada, Porter, all of them
combined? That is combined. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I did the same thing for the airport, for Orlando's airport. And their last year, they were about $21.6 million lost.
Wow.
So, and the thing about it is, this is just like when you were talking about the alcohol in one of your videos recently. You know, even if they put them back on the shelf, right? Well, with this reduced capacity, if I only buy 10% of the alcohol that I used to buy, that is still, I'm still a 90% loss. So until there's like a stated demand, and the airlines aren't going to put in more flights until there's a real stated demand for it. And so this is lost capacity that's not going to come back anytime soon.
Yeah. I mean, I know WestJet has just did another round of cancellations of flights to the United States, and Air Canada did one a while ago. I think YULSpotter, you sent me Air Canada's reductions probably about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago. So I'm kind of curious. I mean, do you have data? I mean, it could be any airport going from Canada to the United States, but like, what if I use Vancouver as an example, because I'm from Vancouver to Las Vegas was like a huge route for us, right? And I can't remember. I think there was probably at least maybe 5 flights per day going down and throughout all the airlines. But do we have information on how many, comparing 2024 to 2026? Like, did Vancouver go from like say 6 flights per day to like 2 flights per day, or is that information available for us?
Yeah, there is information available to us. So, I mean, if you want to use Vancouver as an example, in terms of 2026, what has happened is there's been a reduction from Vancouver to Seattle.
Sorry, YULSpotter, your mic's going again.
It seems every time that I switch to a different screen, it affects my mic. So I'm going to try.
Yeah, it's good now. So okay.
So Vancouver and Seattle has been reduced. The frequencies have been reduced on that one. And there's actually maybe I'll try and instead of talking to it, I'll try and share what I'm talking about. But the other routes that are big losers are, well, Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal have some of the biggest capacity reductions to the U.S. in 2026. So, but Vancouver is probably leading the way. And I do know, and I know you're very proud of this, GTL, is that Vancouver seems to be one of the strongest travel boycotts that we've seen in terms of numbers from the BC area. So, yeah.
Nice. Vancouver's number 1, but we're dead last in the NHL. So, yeah.
But you're number 1 in one thing at least. So,
yeah, we can be proud of that. So, but yeah, like I've always been wondering, that flights to say Vancouver to LA or Vancouver to San Francisco or Las Vegas. I mean, those were very heavy routes in Vancouver. And I've always been curious in terms of like, what was it in 2024 and what is it now, right? So, I think the co-host wants to leave. I'm not sure. Can you hear her? I'm throwing
the co-host has had enough of this nerdy chat.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, maybe. So
yeah, my dog has quieted down. So, by the way, his name is Jet. Appropriate,
Jet?
right? Considering, yeah.
All right.
And the funny thing is that he's a rescue, and we didn't name him. It's his former owner. So
nice.
Life is funny sometimes.
Maybe we'll hear Jet in the background. So
yeah, maybe. So I'm just uploading the one of the data points in terms of the reductions in capacity. So
okay,
we'll just wait.
And Wayne, maybe later on we can have some more information on Orlando, because I know a lot of the viewers are probably former visitors to Florida, so I'm sure they would want to hear what's going on in Orlando. So
Yeah, and this kind of goes back to this idea of, Orlando, Florida, and Las Vegas, because they're no state income tax states, they live off these export taxes.
Right.
So is that outside money being spent in that's driving the tax base for the entire state. So, for example, when you see, it's kind of interesting when you see it for the rental cars for Orlando, they've lost 7.5 million, but then you got to consider how much they're losing on the tax on each rental tax.
Right.
You add in the terminal concessions. Well, how much they're losing on the sales tax that they're paying, on each of these. You're also then losing, going back to the car rentals, you're losing all the toll money. And if you've been in Orlando for more than 5 minutes, you've paid tolls.
Yeah.
So you add all this together, and it's sort of these losses at the airports are compounding through the whole economy. Right. And this is why when people fly, it has a much greater economic impact than people who are driving.
Right. Because they're using the facilities, the airport, and money goes towards that as well. There was that report I sent to you a few days ago where I asked whether or not the Cape Canaveral's property tax increase was due to the lack of tourism revenue or not. Do you think that's related?
It was really, I looked at that and I spent a whole bunch of time looking at it, and they are blaming a former budget chief for it.
That,
But the thing about it is, if you actually look at the numbers, it's not that they were corrupt, it's that they got the projections wrong. Right. They were projecting off of 2024. So they were thinking, oh, we're going to get this amount of accommodations tax. They're going to get this amount of sales tax. They're going to get, and what happens is when the tourists didn't show up, those numbers were nowhere near projections.
Right.
And the thing about it is they didn't sound the alarm quick enough based on the amount of money coming in. So the big complaint was not that they lost the money, is that they didn't report it back in February that they were losing that much money.
Yeah.
And it's kind of an interesting kind of dynamic because, it is most likely it's pretty tourism related.
Yeah.
But this is where no one wants to admit real numbers down there.
Yeah.
They all of a sudden find themselves in these fiscal situations because no one wants to admit the truth and the real numbers.
Yeah. Because I noticed in that report, they didn't mention once, anything about tourism, but when you listen to the whole thing, they are well in the red. And the only thing I can really think of is that, as you said, Florida relies on tourism tax. Obviously, there's not much, so kind of put two and two together, right?
So basically, when you're talking about export tax economies, right, they're fully dependent on having all these people coming back into the area. So they're fully depending on how much money is being spent in that community. So when the numbers drop, what ends up happening is, you see an overall loss. So, for example, you talked about, I'll give you 2024, Canadian visitation to Orlando fell 13.3%. So basically 1.12 million visitors. So at the airport, right?
Yeah.
And then that was down from 1.3 million, down further 1.3 million. So they're down from 2024 about around 2.5-3 million visitors.
Right.
And well, you
some
put
of those
that through an entire tax stream.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. And then you're also that's counting airport people. That's not people who stop driving down there.
That's what I was just going to say. I mean, and this also, because it's Florida, there's probably going to be a lot of long-term or longer-term visitors like snowbirds that are going to be staying there, spending a lot more as well. So
they tend to be a little more further south than Cape Canaveral, but it's not that market is not. So you add all the things together, and then the part of the problem is this is how all these taxes kind of come together. Sorry, we're getting into nerdy weeds here, but the idea of this is that the people don't come to the airport, they're not spending the tax dollars. Well, it's also those jobs that aren't going to be there. all those
Right.
all those level jobs, and then those sort of tip economy, because Trump was in Las Vegas last week bragging about how much money people saved because there's no tax on tips. However, if you're only getting half the tips you used to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
why does it matter how much money you're saving on the tax on them?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
these are the issues that we're really dealing with here, because all of this is cascading through an entire economy, and when they're export tax based economies,
Mhm.
it makes a huge difference to the bottom line of these communities. And that's, I think, what you're seeing with Cape Canaveral. They are finally starting to see the end result of all the cascading features.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Because you
And
did mention. Sorry. You did mention earlier this year that we would start to hear more reports on taxes starting May onwards, or April, May onwards, and I've seen a few of them, but like they haven't been very clear in terms of why they're down on taxes. But there's just for some reason we have less tax money, right? So that's what bothers me. I mean, I might do a video on this one on Cape Canaveral, but yeah. Sorry,
Well,
you were saying.
it's all based on projection, right? So if I took 2024 numbers, and we always assume numbers go up because they never go down.
Mhm.
Isn't that how that works? Revenue always goes up. But they projected increased revenues, and then when the increased revenues didn't come, it's oops, what do we do now?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then it cascades through the entire. And this is the whole problem with this taxing structure. No state income tax sounds really, really good, while the economy is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but I just wanted to sorry before GTL,
No,
I
go
just
ahead.
wanted to piggyback. We talked about the no tax on tips thing, right?
Yep.
And I was just reading an article yesterday for Las Vegas workers, like waiters and stuff at restaurant, that had to actually, just serve breakfast and lunch, not even supper, and the wait staff there was saying no tax on tips it makes zero difference for me because I'm not getting tips like I used to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a ridiculous issue.
Yeah, it's hard.
So,
It's hard to claim tips when you don't get hours.
well,
Yeah. Or
that's
you have no customers.
and plus if we think about ourselves when we travel, we always have spending money with us, right? Okay,
Yeah.
credit cards you don't necessarily, but you always bring some cash. And if you think about, okay, how much cash I should have if I'm going to be, let's say, in Orlando for a week, let's say, $300 that
Yeah.
you're going to spend, you're going to convert to American money, and then, like you said before, the GTL, if you're in Las Vegas, you see the slot machine, you don't want to take it home with you, so you spend it. When we talk about like seat reductions, 80,000, 90,000 seats less in a quarter, think about that $300 or $400 spending cash multiplied by those numbers. That is a lot of money being lost.
Right. And not only money, but well, yeah, I guess mainly it's about money to them, right? But it's also referrals, I guess. What am I trying to say, right? Because obviously, when somebody goes to Vegas, then other people will start to go as well. I mean, at least in my group, whenever we go for a golf trip, it'll be my core group of friends, and then other people will join as well, and then others, and next thing you know, you got enough for like 2 flights, right? So they're definitely not getting that anymore, and it's sad. For me personally, I mean, I do have a bit of a soft spot for Vegas because I do have some friends there as well. But it is what it is. So, sorry, YULSpotter, did you have those documents uploaded,
Yeah.
or should we?
Yeah.
Right.
No, I could show one right now.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
So let's see here. I'm going to share the one that shows. Now I don't have the seats.
Okay.
But I have the reductions overall. Hopefully my mic is going to work because it seems to have been choppy when I've been looking at documents. So I hope it's okay. Just let me know. So we see that flare. So these are the top carriers in Canada. Okay, that have transborder flights.
Sorry,
so
are you able to zoom in a bit?
Yeah.
It's a little bit.
It's a little bit blurry.
A bit.
Yeah. Let me zoom in here.
I think there we go.
How's that? So we're comparing Q1 to 2025 to Q1 2026. So usually they announce their changes for Q1, but it maintains throughout the year. So Flair is, you see the huge reduction there. They refocused mostly on domestic Flair Airlines. So it's the biggest drop of all the airlines, all the carriers. And WestJet, like you said before, we talked about that. That was quite a bit of reduction, especially to popular places like California, Nevada. Those were some of the big impacts there. Seattle area, Air Canada. They have, okay, it's one of the lower ones, but if you just think of their complete route network, overall, it makes sense that maybe they would see less of an impact. They're still the primary carrier in Canada. But the one exception is Porter, where we see a plus 14%. So what Porter, I think, is trying to do is they're trying to take advantage of these other reductions. They've also introduced a new aircraft called the E195E2, which they're flying into Toronto Pearson now, and not just the Island Airport. So this is, a jet-powered aircraft. It competes with the A220. So they're trying to take advantage of that new aircraft type to expand their route network. With that, and they're saying they want to be the carrier of choice when going to the U.S. So they're trying, I guess.
Yeah.
To see, we'll see how that turns out. Okay, maybe it's a bit of a gamble, but I found that an interesting little statistic. And the other statistic I have is, and I can maybe ask people before I share it, is what do you think in terms of a leisure destination? So we're not talking U.S. now. Who is the biggest gainer in terms of increase in passenger capacity and flights? And the answer may surprise people.
Are we talking international?
Yes, international. So this would include Mexico, okay? But it's not a Mexican destination. So I'll switch it.
I'm going to guess somewhere in Europe.
Okay. Are you seeing my switch of screen?
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah. So you see, it's Costa Rica.
Wow. Okay.
Which I think that kind of caught me off guard as well. My wife has been to Costa Rica a few times, and she loves it there. It's a beautiful place to visit. So Mexico is next over, is below that, but it's not the top. And we see that Japan. I think that makes a lot of sense. Is there France as well? Especially with a large French-speaking population, and especially Quebec and then Ontario as well. That makes sense. And then we have the UK. So I think a balance of these are not surprising, but I was very surprised with Costa Rica as one of the biggest gainers so far in terms of who's getting the capacity that's being taken away from the US.
The one that actually surprises me is Japan at 13%. And because Japan is probably one of the farthest destinations, especially if you're going from the East Coast. But I think from Vancouver to Tokyo, it's still like a 10-hour flight. But people are making the trek, right? So I have a friend that actually did that during the spring break. Instead of normally taking his kids to California, they went to the Tokyo and Disneyland, the Disneyland in Tokyo instead. So it's just a data point right there that people are avoiding. So sorry, I have to move the co-host. She's getting really creative today. But you guys continue.
You're gonna end up doing some editing on this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. So I'll be back.
Yeah. Go ahead. So I don't know, Wayne.
Did you find what is the capacity reduction for Vegas?
Yes, I was looking at that. Give me a second.
Okay, yeah. Because I found the average spend on a weekend, so I could do a quick calculation of how much that's costing the whole economy.
Oh, okay. Because I know it was one.
Hey guys, sorry, I'm back.
It was one of the biggest losers. I think I talked about that before. I want to see where I found where I put that data point in my
because I knew you had it.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna reshare the screen.
Your mic is your mic's going again. So
it's every time I go look at another it's so bizarre. Okay, let me reshare because I'm going to show you exactly what you just asked for.
Sorry, I'm going to do some quick table math here for you guys. I think this number is going to be pretty impressive.
All right.
Okay, good. We like impressive.
82,000 fewer seats a year. Okay. So
And like I mentioned, Orlando is next, but it depends if it's on the upper end of that 90,000. That is the number one loss. Unfortunately, I
Yeah.
couldn't get the information for the other locations, but they did confirm to me that Tampa, Fort Myers, and Newark were also some of the biggest drops in terms of numbers of seats. And
Wow.
Newark is a very popular alternative to JFK and
LaGuardia.
LaGuardia because because they're so packed, those airports, and the taxiing times. I don't know if anybody's ever been through there. You could sometimes be waiting 45 minutes just to get to the runway. So a lot of Canadian airlines try to fly to Newark, so that is also a big
Mhm.
impact.
All right,
Yeah.
Guard to Leave, I have a good one for you. So
Okay.
we were just talking about in the numbers that there
Mhm.
was 82,000 less seats going to Las Vegas, right?
All right.
So let's do a little fun experiment here. All right, because I looked up some numbers. So let's just say we only sold 50% of those seats. 41,000 of those seats were sold, right?
Yeah.
So if we take 41,000, right? The average spend on a 3-day weekend in Vegas. So 3 days in Vegas, the average spend is $1,300, and that's US dollars. That's not Canadian dollars.
Mhm.
So that alone, that 41,000 times 1,300 is just over $53 million.
Wow.
So
Wow.
just to give you a sense, in Vegas, of that money that's spent, between 20 and 25% goes to taxes,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So you're talking then, hold on, times. Oh, $13 million in taxes,
Wow.
Wow.
just in that alone. And that's if the receipt reduction. So we would have sold in a normal in a 2025 in 2024 if we had the same things. That's only selling 50%. So you add in if that whole 80,000, 82,000 number is, you're talking $20 million that
Right.
you're costing that local economy by not being able to sell those seats potentially.
Right.
And then if you put an economic impact of say 1.25 or somewhere in there, because it flows through the economy, right?
Mhm.
So you're now talking, this is a $30-ish million reduction in seats going through that economy. And these are all export dollars.
Mhm.
These are not local money that's just being spent in the economy. This is all export money coming into an economy.
Yeah.
So when you start looking at these types of numbers, you can see why this is going to be a huge problem for those heavily tourism dependent states.
Mhm. That's interesting. I don't think. I mean, this is just me kind of rambling right now, but I don't think the United States really understands how much money we spend.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually don't think Canadians really realize this as well, right? I mean, I didn't realize that with the just that 50% of the seats, that's how much of revenue they're getting from us, right?
Yeah. So when you start looking at this, you're talking in the tens of millions of dollars flowing through an economy. So every time an airline switches to a smaller plane,
Yeah.
every time they cancel a flight, that is a lot of potential lost revenue for a community. This is why when you see there's a bunch of communities when they get a new airline who's flying in,
Mhm.
it's such big news in that community because it's not just that the airline's flying in, it's all the money, export dollars that they're bringing in as every time a plane lands as a result
Right.
of that new flight.
Yeah.
And they're not
Yeah.
flying with 50% capacity.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
They're normally. I mean, that's one of the things too. I mean, I always thought that, like if I use Vegas as an example again, every time I went, the plane was always full, right?
yeah.
And I would always be. Well, my friends and I were always sitting in the back, and the entire plane is just jam packed every single
Yeah.
time. And what I think about is, okay, if we went from going to Las Vegas, the planes were always full. There's maybe six flights per day with various airlines, and it goes down to two. and I'm spending, say a couple grand, maybe, 2,500, $3,000 when I'm down there, that includes hotel and car rental and all that kind of stuff. They're not getting that money, and you times that by the amount of flights that are not going anymore. I can now see the number that you said, right? So
Yeah.
I think, at least for the viewers, I mean, hopefully this gave a bigger perspective. And, like I said earlier in the video, I glad our media and US media is saying like 25% or 30% or whatever else. But for me, I want to know the nitty gritty. I want to know the actual numbers and capacities and seats and things like that, and how much they're losing on taxes, right? It just kind of, I mean, it sounds kind of bad, but it's just kind of satisfying, right? So,
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
and it's going to affect communities.
Yeah.
I don't think any Canadian wants to negatively affect American communities and the average working person. But it's also a case of, the only way you can really, the American politicians or political folks look at something is purely by dollars. Citizens United made it all about the money. So until the big guys start bleeding or hemorrhaging cash, they're not going to notice.
Yeah. And I should clarify that. I mean, I don't want to see any communities or families fail. It's just, for me, it's more of validation that our U.S. boycott is actually doing damage. So, especially for me, I get so many crap emails from people saying, "Oh, we see tons of Canadians and our economy is fine." And, but this, what we talked about today, I think is a good validation that, everybody that is listening right now that is boycotting, it is actually making a big difference. So.
Well, I think the bigger point is this is not going to be short.
Yeah,
they're not. You just can't invent a bunch of new. So say we had a change of government tomorrow, and everyone feels good about the relationship, and everything's going back to normal. It'll take 2 or 3 years to get that capacity back.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, I did a video. When did I do? I'm losing track of my schedules, but actually, no, it was today. The video about the liquor being off the shelves. I mean, there is talk from CBC that maybe the liquor might go back on the shelves, although I don't know how it's. I mean, I think it's a provincial decision, not a federal. But
yeah, it is.
If it does go back on the shelves, it's not an automatic that all the bottles are going to be bought up. So it's same thing in the tourism industry, is that if we have a sane president and things kind of somewhat go back to normal, there's too much damage done. I think a lot of people have already changed their minds. So
yeah, all those sales of properties in Florida, the snowbirds, plus people's habits have changed. They've discovered new places that they like, and those are the impacts.
Exactly. Well, I want to thank you guys. I mean, we're already at the 37-minute mark. It didn't seem like that, but I want to thank you both for joining me for this video. And the point of this video and why I wanted to jump on a call with you guys is just to see if we can get some more nitty-gritty details and validation that our boycott of U.S. tourism destinations is really making an impact. So we'll see how the community likes the video, and if there's more destinations that we can focus on. I know today we focused on Orlando and Las Vegas, but if you guys have any more information on, say, Los Angeles or Nashville or New York or things like that, I'm more than happy to jump on a call with you.
Sounds good.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much, both. Just stay on the line and end the recording. So if you're still here, I hope this gives you a bit more perspective in terms of what our boycott is actually doing. I mean, for me, just hearing 25% down or 30% down, it's nice, but it doesn't really tell me too much. So after this conversation, I learned a lot about what Las Vegas airport is actually losing. Same with Orlando's. And I think we're just touching the surface in terms of finding the nitty gritty of what our boycott is actually doing. So if you want to see more videos like this, let me know in the comments below. And I'll see if I can get Wayne and YULSpotter on a call again. Maybe we'll have some other destinations we can talk about. But I want to thank Wayne and YULSpotter again for taking the time to meet with me. Closing out this video, I'd like to thank Tom for posting this photo on the Guard the Leaf Hay Cafe page. And this one's taken from the Jordan Lake boat launch in Ontario. I appreciate you sharing a photo from your area of Canada. Okay, everyone, that's it for this video. It's a bit of a longer one, but I do hope that you got some value out of it. And if you did get some value out of it, consider checking out my Guard the Leaf Substack page or my Buy Me a Coffee page. Thanks, everyone. I'll catch you in the next one.